So I guess I want to start with when this takes place and setting it 93. It's an important time frame. But yeah, share with us why 93.
Well, in 1993 in the summer, there was the Summer of Violence. So it is inspired by true events that happened that summer because I lived there. I lived there that summer, and the press was going crazy about the rise in the murders, and actually it turned out it was not the most violent summer on record, but just the way things were going on in the media. And so that's why 93. And I wanted to keep it set there because, well, even though gun violence has really escalated since then and really has no bounds, I thought maybe setting it in that setting where it was kind of limited to those, that confined area would be a better setting for the story. That's what I really, because really at the heart of it, it's just about a young woman trying to make it through and, follow her dreams and find her voice, and how difficult that is when you live in a culture where the violence is sort of imposing itself upon you. And I feel like so many young people today, so many of us today still have that. I mean, I remember the day I got a call from my daughter in the school, and she's hiding in the closet. And I'm like, well, have you heard gunshots? And just the fact that that's a conversation parents are having, no matter where they live. Yeah. And I wanted to try to distill it down to that small, personal story, because we are living through this. Each of us are having our own individual stories. We get caught up in like the big of the news, Summer of Violence, but it's one person, being impacted. And that's what I try to talk about. That's a really long answer, isn't it?
I love it, though. I'm curious then, is Naomi in any way personal character to you?
Well, very much so. I mean, I think all of my characters are very personal to me. Naomi is a part of me. She's a part of my daughter. She's women I know, women I know. She's a woman I used to be, because I the hard part about writing Naomi was letting her be 21, letting her make 21-year-old girl mistakes and not judging it from, my grown-up position, and making her wiser, because, you're tempted to say, well, let's not let her do that, But I feel like as people, we have flaws, and it's, the flaws are what, I don't know, you don't want to erase them. Yeah.
Before we talk about the wonderful cast you got, I'm really curious about the team you built. Like your DP, Low Life. I'm pretty sure he was on that.
Yes, of course he was. Yeah, Ben Kitchens.
Tell me about building your team around you, especially knowing like Low Life has been impactful for this film, I feel like.
So, well, I got hooked up with the AFI crew. Narco Corrido. So I don't know how many years ago that was, but that's when we first, Ryan was directing, Ben was DP, I was the lead. And it was a down and dirty shoot in the middle of the night. We did all nights. And, we just all kind of clicked and bonded. And we went on to do Low Life, I guess, a couple of years later. And Ben again was the DP, and this was even down and dirtier. I think that budget of that film was really, really low. And Ben and I, all of us really got really close and just really enjoyed working together. And Ben usually was, as the DP, he's also the camera operator. And since I'm the lead, usually Ben was like right here next to me or right here. And so I was very comfortable with Ben. And when I had the opportunity to do my film, I called him, I sent him the script, but Ben has been DPing for 10 years or something. He's done so many projects, so many films, and I wasn't sure he was going to be down for a first-time director. And he read the script. He's like, Nicki, this is beautiful. I want to do it with you. And I was like, come on. And he's like, yeah, I want to do it. And he was willing to come down on his rate and really work with me, because we had, we had not nearly enough money to make this movie. And Ben, brought in his people. And then, of course, I reached out to people I've known over the years. Fu Flowers, who I had met at Sundance, and Sean Riggs, who had done Lazarus, was a producer friend of mine. So they came on first, and it was just really kind of I want to call it my extended family, really. It kind of grew from there. Some of my best friends, Sonia Marchand, was also a producer on the film. My brother, Brian Mitchell, was also a producer. Johnny Wimbrey, my executive producer. So many people were just kind of an extension of my life, and all of us coming together to make this film. And I remember Ben said to me, You know, we're going to hold on to each other, and we're going to fall down some stairs, but we're going to be okay. You know, and that's kind of sometimes what making the movie was like, just dragging each other up the stairs and down the stairs and just making this film. It was an amazing experience. It was tough, but it was really amazing. And Ben's just like a fantastic partner.
One of the elements of the film I love is the musical note, the tone, the soundscape. Can you talk about bringing us back a little bit of nostalgia, but
yes,
the pacing of your film is so complete with that.
So there are two parts to the music. There are the sort of the pop tunes that we used, and I wanted to try to find. For me, the era was marked by acid jazz, which was kind of like, I guess you call it neo soul now, but acid jazz was a very distinct sound to me. And although we couldn't afford to license those artists, I really wanted to find the vibe of the era for me, for her. Although you had NWA coming out then, and I think Public Enemy was out then, but that's a different sound. So I really wanted to try to carve out something that was happening, you know, in that era. And then I wanted my score to fill in that same thing, you know, because I wanted the whole thing to kind of go with the poetry, you know, as if it was the backdrop to the poetry. So I was really happy about my composer, Dr. Marcus Norris, who I had heard. I went to his concert. He is what is he called? The conductor? There's a word for it that I'm forgetting. The conductor, the something. He's the main guy for Southside Symphony, and I went to hear them play, and they do a lot of pop tunes, hip-hop tunes on classical instruments, and it just blew me away. And it was years before I got to the movie, and I was like, when I make a movie, that guy is going to do my score. And I was really honored to have him work with me, because he had just come off working with Beyonce for her Dubai something or other. So I was like, oh gosh. But it was wonderful, and I'm so happy that the way the music plays. But that's kind of how it all came together, was trying to find something that went with the vibe of the poetry and the era that was in that acid jazz zone, black but not necessarily hardcore hip hop. You know, and then of course Boulder, Pearl Jam, Nirvana, all of those sounds, and I really wanted to get Big Head Todd in the film, but you know, again, with budget constraints. But you know, that had its own sound, so the music to me was really important to kind of color the landscape of the world.
You mentioned the poetry.
Yeah.
You wrote all this, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, I did, yeah.
How long have you had some of these poems? They're beautiful.
Some of them I have had for over 20, 30 years. Some of them I wrote in college.
Wow.
Yeah, and I did not alter them, some of them, because I wanted that angst. You know, that angst that I had experienced, you know, in those moments where those words pour out of your soul. And then some I wrote to match the script. But yeah, so I've been writing, I guess, a long time. Yeah, but mostly what I did was just write a bunch of poetry. I have journals of poetry at home, and I just would write it and kind of shelve it, because I wasn't pursuing that. You know, it just was an expression for me.
So I wanted to save the acting question because who you are. So I'm curious, when casting this film, what were you looking for in your Naomi, and how did you find it in this wonderful actress Karen? How did you find her?
Casey Inez. What I was looking for what was I looking for in Naomi? It's hard to put it in a word. I think I just wanted the truth, you know. Someone who was believable, that could be strong and still naive, a certain level of innocence, but power at the same time. And because sometimes when we're so powerful, no one would ever believe you would make a mistake. So it was an interesting balance to find. And I thought Casey was just very pure, very honest. You know, and I just loved her face. I loved her face. I loved her eyes. I loved her expression. I loved her being. I loved her energy, and ultimately, and I love the way she delivered the poetry, because you know, Naomi was not a good poet. Naomi was just getting started, so you couldn't come in and just be, you know, come in and just like drop the mic and woof. You had to be able to kind of find it and she was really good at that and very powerful when she needed to be. So she was real. I mean, I got kind of lucky. People don't know she's an amazing talent, and I was very, very blessed to find her because she's able to go to the darkest of places and yet the lightest of places, and just such a champ. I mean, an amazing talent.
What was it like filming an intimacy scene? Mm-hmm. And you had a coordinator for this, correct?
I did.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we had a coordinator, and she was really helpful for like the hospital scene, and just for Casey to have a touchstone, because I was most afraid about that scene because of the violation of the scene. And then the intimate, and I worked with the actors a lot on the intimacy stuff, just a lot of exercises and just helping them get comfortable so that we did whatever they wanted to do. But I had a very specific vision for the film that really was never about sex. It was always about intimacy, about connection, about the silence, when we're just being with someone. So it was a little bit different, so it wasn't about, I didn't care about how much skin you showed. I cared about, were your eyes open? Were you able to drop your guard and allow yourself to be seen? So I did a lot of work with them to help them, because two strangers meet and stare each other in the eye. There's giggling, there's nervousness, and so my job was to help them be with each other. And God, they're gorgeous. It's just gorgeous. I could not be happier. By the time we got to that scene, they were ahead of me. And I was just like, well, wait, I thought we weren't going to do all of that. And they're like, you said it was a dance. I'm like, I did say that. And off they go, and it was really beautiful. I'm very, very proud. It was both, actually, for Jack King and for Casey, that was their first love scene, for both of them.
Wow.
Yes.
Shot beautifully, by the way. Wonderful.
Thank you, because I was really nervous about shooting it that way and putting the poem underneath. Ben complained. But, I just had I saw it, and I was like, this is what it looks like, and I'm very, very proud of that scene, very happy with it. And it's a little... It gave the emotion that I wanted to give for that moment, because there's so much darkness in the movie that it needed to be light. It needed to be beautiful. It needed to be magical.
I love the father figure.
Yes.
Can you talk about A, finding him, and B, that final scene of her reading to him? It's a beautiful moment.
Damon Gupton. Actually, the casting director found him for me. And I knew of his work, but we were so far behind schedule, and she was like, you need to see him, and recommended him for the part. That scene, the junkyard scene, the poetry scene, coming back to the dad, I was so wanted to just show a father being humble enough to admit he was wrong, and having an opportunity for the daughter to receive the love and give it back. I really felt like that was important. I wanted to show how vital family is to you being able to fly. I wanted to show that with the love of her parents, she could do anything, whether it was law school or poetry or whatever, but it was all about how we need that kind of cushion when the world's kind of coming at us like that. And that was what I was really going for. That poem I wrote for the movie, and I wrote it kind of reminiscing about my father. My father passed in 2000. I was young. I was 30 when he passed. So I really, there's so much, you don't get to say, so many things you don't get to resolve. So my catharsis moment was writing that poem for my father. So and Casey, they both did such a good job with that scene. So it always makes me happy, that you can do that. And a lot of people have seen the film and are most moved because we all have fathers, whether we know them or not. And people are really touched by that scene, and it touches me that it touches others, You
have such a great diversity from like soul food way back in the day all the way to like Animal Kingdom. I'm curious, is there any directors or writers that you took something from them when you decided to finally direct this?
Whew, I feel
6 Feet Under, by the way, too. It's great.
Right, I know all those guys, and The Shield, and I feel like I'm such a product of all the amazing people that I've had the opportunity to work with. I have learned so much being so close, over the decades of my career. I wouldn't be able to pick out like a single, because I really feel like I am just this, you went through this shoot and out you come, and like, where'd you learn that? Like, I don't know, Kevin Hooks, I don't know. But I have learned so much working with so many amazing people. And I think if I were to pick a person, Kevin spent the most time with me, because when I was in the director's program for the Disney ABC program, Kevin was my primary mentor, and I worked with him on Detroit 187, and I learned a lot. And mostly what I learned from Kevin, because he was an actor too, was how valuable my acting background was in directing. Being able to know how the scene goes, shaping the scene, and then blocking the scene. Like, so much I was like, oh, I have skills. You don't really think of it, because you're like, oh, I'm just an actor. But no, you're an actor, and you have all of this background, all of these things that you've learned, gleaned over time. But yeah, and I can remember some things with working with Alan Poole on 6 Feet Under. One of the scenes, like how he directed me, and then how it was shot. I worked with Kathy Bates on 6 Feet Under. I'd be hard to, like, I think I've learned so much. Like, I've had an amazing career and have worked with just, honestly, giants in the business. So I'm just a little baby of all these wonderful people. That's all it is.
So I know we're still in the early life of this wonderful film, but I'm curious, have you got your next idea, next story? Anything you can share?
Oh, yeah. Well, what's the next one? The next one's a psychological thriller dealing with AI. That I'm hoping to find wonderful talent to attach to. And then I have my sci-fi action thriller that I'm still writing. I'm almost done. I'm always almost done. Oh my God. I have those. And then I'm also just looking to direct. It doesn't have to be something I wrote. I'm trying to really position myself as a director, because so much of my motivation has been, I want to make this movie, which is something that's been in my head. But now I'm like, oh, I can take other people's ideas and color them and shape them, because I love being behind the camera so much. I do think I might act in my next one too, though.
Really?
Well, it was a lot for the first one. I was like, I felt like it was just too much. Too much. But directing makes me miss acting. It's funny because it's all play, it's all play. Like, the best days are, the work of a director prepping is what I would call actual work, but on set is like, oh my God, it's play with toys and people and equipment and other actors, and it's play. It's the most amazing fun. And that's when I'm like, dang, I should have gave myself a role. But I never usually have time. I didn't have any time in prep to think about acting, like, at all. None.
Thank you for bringing it to this festival, to Tallgrass. I'm curious, this is your first time in Wichita.
Yeah.
How has Kansas been? Because I know you came here a little earlier than normal.
Kansas has been great. It's I don't know much about Wichita. Oh, I've been to Kansas City, with Low Life. Mm-hmm. So, I was familiar with barbecue. Very familiar. And of course, my mother was just like, well, don't stay too long, those tornadoes. And I'm like, Mom, it's funny. But I've really enjoyed the people. I love the small feel of this festival, like how everyone feels like your neighbor, or like you would know them. And I love how you get a chance to really meet all the filmmakers and the audiences, because it's contained, and I love that. So I'm having a good time. This is what is this, day 2? Mm-hmm. So I'm having a really good time with it.
Well, Nicki, thank you for bringing the film here. Can't wait to see the future AI movie. I can't wait for that. But thank you for coming. It's been a real pleasure.
Yes, thank you. I'm really grateful to be here with the film. I'm very grateful. Thank you.